Losing inspiration is unavoidable. Be that as it may, here's the way to save it for any longer than you regularly do. The manner in which we see inspiration isn't right. We believe that to begin with our objectives, we need significant degrees of inspiration. Yet, this isn't the situation. What we need is force. I simply don't feel adequately inspired is the thing that's frequently said, as most people actually inspiration for bunches is horrendously defective. Be that as it may, inspiration isn't what you use to get moving, it's what you use to continue onward. One thing I used to be blameworthy of was my propensity to think of an endless measure of reasons to put things off, things that I would not like to do. Composing today? I'll do what needs to be done tomorrow. On my telephone for as long as hour as opposed to working? It's fine. Didn't arrive at the cutoff time I set myself? It isn't so significant. I made it up in any case. It was a consistent battle when managing lethargy and tarrying. While it wasn't generally something awful, it wasn't really the correct thing. By and large, representatives spend the greater part of their workdays doing things that aren't useful for their work. Numerous individuals never find time to write or beginning a business or making workmanship, since they're continually pondering when they will begin straight away. We as a whole battle with making a move. It's an issue with keeping inspiration, yet in addition getting roused in any case. We frequently lose huge inspiration rapidly on the grounds that directly after the beginning of an objective, we begin to adapt to acknowledging exactly how much exertion we need to place in. It resembles skiing down a frigid slant. It's simple for you to ride to the top with high inspiration. Yet, when you understand you need to now coast down the slope, your inspiration dives like a colossal sheet of day off. You begin to think, poop. I really need to take a stab at this consistently, and you feel prepared to reassess after the very beginning. Anyway, how would we moderate this drop in inspiration? How might we keep it from diffusing like a phantom and keep it consistent for more? Here's the ticket. Get moving. At that point, get great. Beginning with inspiration, I idolize the notion that inspiration isn't something you start with, you proceed and get done with it. As far as I might be concerned, what the vast majority see toward the start of an objective isn't inspiration, that is motivation. Motivation, a person or thing that gives you thoughts for accomplishing something, the brilliant fall light that gives motivation to the work of art. Motivation is the sparkling star up in the sky that guides you towards the beginning stage for your objective. At the point when you are motivated, you feel abundance from the simple perception of accomplishing what it is you decided to do. Motivation is the thing that causes you to gather the energizing considerations and thoughts of what you want. It makes you picture your existence with this new goal presently complete, perceiving how much better everything gets. Be that as it may, motivation perishes steadily after your objective beginnings. That is when inspiration kicks in. Inspiration, the demonstration or an occurrence of spurring, or giving motivation to act with a specific goal in mind, a purpose behind activities, eagerness, and objectives. In our brains, we consider inspiration to be a purpose behind beginning. While that is valid, to a certain extent, it's not as instrumental in pressing the beginning catch as motivation is. The veritable part of inspiration is to give you an explanation behind your objective drove activities. It immerses a fire into your drive. At the point when you're propelled, you want. At the point when you're roused, you move. This is the thing that a great many people get mistaken for. Suppose you need to begin drawing idea craftsmanship, in the desire to turn into an expert. What normally happens is, toward the beginning, you want to turn into a craftsman. You believe you're propelled when really, you're simply roused. You look into different craftsmen, individuals who've dominated what you need to do. What's more, you'll gather over their victories, gathering sawdust-like sections of motivation. In any case, for quite a long time, you don't begin. You rather consider all the apparatuses you trust you require, another sign you're just roused, for the present. You're hesitating. You go through hours taking a gander at different craftsmen or figuring out how to draw. Yet you're not really propelled to rehearse. At last, you compel yourself to begin, and you piece together your first idea. It's hard. Also, the result wasn't acceptable. Motivation by this point has totally scattered, and your inspiration tank is blazing red. But since you've presently begun, you need to attempt once more. So you draw another piece the following day, marginally resolved to improve. That is inspiration kicking in. The present circumstance will in general be the situation for some individuals. You start incredibly enlivened by a person or thing, and afterward you invest the greater part of your energy playing with motivation. You're not roused at this point, however once you get moving, you will be. Inspiration just exists once you get moving, you don't get moving whenever you're roused. Looking after inspiration getting roused is moderately simple. Remaining persuaded is hard. You get spurred when you make a move on your cravings. At the point when you get up, briefly walk or time block those 30 minutes at 10 a.m. so you can compose, you're outfitting inspiration. The more you begin, the more inspired you feel. As a cyclist, when I restart preparing after a break, I generally feel a little battle to get out and ride. Particularly if the climate is abominable or in the event that I feel ill-suited. Yet, after the principal day or two of submitting, taking off to prepare progressively turns out to be more normal, as though I'm sleepwalking as I get dressed and head out the entryway. This is on the grounds that inspiration gets enmeshed into the framework that keeps me on time each day. A decent inquiry to pose to yourself is, how do the most productive craftsmen on the planet keep roused? Individuals who have insane timetables and stay aware of everything absent much by way of vacillating? Separating the ceremonies of these individuals stick to is a critical turner to figuring out how you can fabricate a superior propensity for keeping roused. For example, Haruki Murakami sees actual effort as a fundamental piece of his imaginative interaction. He gets up each day at sunrise to go for a run prior to composing for 5 hours. As far as he might be concerned, the dreary development of putting one foot after another places his objective cognizant psyche in a daze, so his all the more impressive inner mind-brain can incorporate thoughts in new, energizing ways. Maya Angelou additionally had a capricious propensity that caused her produce top-notch composing. She would lease, and keep, a lodging in each town she ever lived in over time-long profession. She would lease a space for a couple of months, leave her home at 6 a.m. to arrive by 6:30 a.m. To compose, she would lie across the bed in a particular position and compose until 12:30 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. She never dozes at the inn, she returns home to inhale and afterward peruses her work around 5 p.m. The way to consistency and inspiration is making your objectives simple to run after. At the point when you construct a custom you can follow, you make it simpler to complete stuff and continue to complete stuff. Which, thus, permits you to stream a consistent progression of inspiration over time of work. Making inspiration a propensity. The top creatives don't rely upon inspiration or motivation. Or maybe, they follow a steady example and schedule, which helps what they do feel consistent, exercise reliably, utilizing a similar warm-up and chill-off daily practice. Flash innovativeness, following an imaginative custom before they begin composing or drawing or preparing. Start the day tranquil, with a pre-rest custom that guides them to bed, they don't clutch their issues. Rest soundly, accomplishing brilliant work is tied in with putting well-being first. This should precede whatever else. The force of custom gives a careless method to light your conduct. It makes your propensities simpler to do so you can follow these propensities on a more steady premise. Keeping up inspiration is tied in with creating cornerstone ceremonies that help you settle on choices rapidly and absent a lot of cognizant info. A few people don't get going in light of the fact that they essentially don't have the foggiest idea how to begin. The secret to this is, cause it to feel consistent. Simple and programmed. With the goal that you have the solidarity to complete it when things get troublesome and testing. The best approach to do this is to begin little. Never make things hard for yourself in the first place. Moderate directly down, and afterwards steadily increment the force of your propensities. Inspiration will at that point stick to this same pattern. To make your inspiration a propensity, here are a couple of approaches to improve your capacity to remain persuaded. Make your routine moronically simple. You don't depend on inspiration to start, you utilize it whenever you've started. For instance, on a day I compose, I have pages I compose on and plan my composition on effectively stacked on my PC. Along these lines, when I open it in the first part of the day, it's all set. Utilize your daily practice to authorize force. Force gathers speed. At the point when you need mental inspiration, it's regularly down to an absence of actual development. Consider when you've felt low, exhausted, or unmotivated. You were most likely not moving particularly by the same token. It resembles rolling a snowball down a slope. The more it rolls, the more force it fabricates and the more snow it gathers, subsequently the more grounded it becomes. The more you are truly moving and occupied with what you're doing, the more lively and invigorated you feel, much the same as when you dance. Follow the example each and every time. Follow James Clear's 3 R's of habit change. Set a suggestion to prompt the activity, make it an everyday practice by instituting reliably. At that point remember it and give yourself a prize to unite your new propensity. Also, the more sure you consider your outcomes, the almost certain you will continue onward. Computer games are a great method of inspiring that it is so critical to limit the discipline for viably attempting. At the point when you play in a story or on multiplayer, passing on, or losing, in the game rapidly prompts you to respawn and begin again from the closest designated spot. The astounding thing that we disregard is the manner by which it constructs your assurance to finish an objective, in-game as well as throughout everyday life. The danger of disappointment is so minutely punished that you scarcely feel awful for coming up short. You figure out how to zero in on going until you succeed. To make your inspiration predictable, form it as a propensity that is not difficult to follow. Control it by hanging it into your propensities, you'll see it gets undeniably more predictable at that point. Utilize mental models. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett and a significant number of the best makers vindicate the outrageous significance of mental models. The issue is no one is tuning in. You may think they are exceptions since they're special, were brought into the world with high IQs, tried sincerely and got lucky. That is significant, indeed. However, here's the problem, that likewise depicts a huge number of other rich and knowledgeable individuals. Anyway, why's there just a single Elon Musk? The solution to our inspiration issue lies in our messed up training framework. Growing up, you and I weren't shown mental models nor ingrained the control to utilize them. Musk, notwithstanding, discovered them and afterward constrained himself to think just in models. He abrogated his Neolithic agrarian science since he disguised the significance of doing as such. Perceiving that our schooling framework bombs us by focusing on dinosaurs over mental models is the initial step to building better disguised frameworks in your brain. This encourages you all the more frequently use normal and self-assured person thinking. Mental models complete two things: assist you with evaluating how frameworks work and help you settle on better choices. These two ideas underlie all that you do. You utilize mental models to reliably work out the most fitting response to each address. For example, what does a list composing resemble? It has numerous constituent parts that rely upon one another, and your responsibility is to see how. In this occurrence, we've utilized first principles to figure out how to function out the most effective approach to, on a very basic level, see how inspiration functions starting from the earliest stage. From here, we work up from the physical and mental imperatives of inspiration to applicate it into our capacity to frame propensities. This one straightforward model encourages us direct ourselves through our objectives and wanted conduct to make a more complete self. The secret to developing inspiration through mental models is to improve for the machine, not the pinion. For example, instead of attempting to improve your inspiration by working gradually harder on a couple of propensities, expect to see how to improve inspiration totally, by moving the manner in which you get inspiration and how to control it. Try not to follow a stream until you realize where you're going so that you're not going through years acting naturally damagingly languid. As Tim Urban said, as long as you can remember runs on the product, the models, in your mind. Is there any valid reason why you wouldn't fixate on advancing it? The advantages of force drove inspiration. Force makes inspiration and inspiration powers energy. At the point when you string the two together, it assembles your drive to turn out to be considerably more predictable and stable. Inspiration isn't consistent. Everybody has their awful many days where they would prefer not to do anything. That is okay. We can't anticipate that inspiration should be a similar consistently, as it generally relies upon what we look like after ourselves for the duration of the day. There'll be days where you'll feel more drained than others. Yet when you surrender inspiration as something that is made inside, you'll have the option to run on a more feasible fuel of inspiration and inward drive. One that never-endingly builds your efficiency and innovativeness. Here are a couple of advantages of energy-drove inspiration. Enduring inspiration. The more force you make, the more you make a move on your objectives, the more you'll continue to go throughout the many months. The Goldilocks rule is a decent guideline to follow. The standard expresses that people experience top inspiration when working on errands that are directly on the edge of their present capacities. For example, picture when an objective was hard, however you trusted it to be conceivable to accomplish that objective as long as you continued onward, like being part of the way through 14-day exercise camp. Chipping away at assignments that hold fast to the Goldilocks rule is a solid method to dominate long-haul inspiration. In the event that you end up inclination unmotivated, you'll see it is on the grounds that the errand has floated into a region of fatigue or been pushed into a zone of incomprehensible trouble. Figure out how to pull the assignment back to the boundary of your capacities where you feel tested, however skillful. More prominent strength. The best thing about having low inspiration, and traversing it, is that it conveys an evident advantage through flexibility. A similar way you create certainty when your apprehensions challenge you, flexibility comes about when you are compelled to push through pressure. You construct strength and inspiration by depending on inner inspiration instead of outer prizes. Ask yourself, could it be that I'm taking a stab at with this objective? When you continue to do that, you develop fortitude and add clearness to your main goal. Furthermore, the more strength you have, the strong you are to issues and stress. Inspiration gives you clearness. The vast majority's issues are an instance of insufficient lucidity. We disregard the issues in our mind and neglect to address what shields us from being at our latent capacity. Clearness is Lord in all that you do, from how you think, to the way that you move and accordingly live. Without it, you could be moving in a totally misguided course without acknowledging it. At the point when you take a stab at clearness with your objectives, you figure out how to sort out and recall what precisely you're focusing on and why. You remember the purposes behind making a move, and that by itself will keep you propelled. Life is a non-stop harmony between permitting interruption and beating it. It is a fragile craft of 1,000 fights and small choices that decide if you continue onward or surrender. To remain propelled, stay moving. Furthermore, when the second comes where you don't want to do any work, try not to discard it so rapidly. Remember it. Appreciate it. Also, comprehend that this is important for your story. Inspiration is the thing that makes your excursion beneficial. If you liked the video, please don't forget to subscribe.